So far we have seen how the financial market as a subset of the financial system serves economy, serves nation, and obviously the global financial system would support the domestic financial system and will impact the domestic financial market. So in this context, we need to understand a bit on what globalization is all about. We all keep talking about globalization, liberalization, and privatization. The ultimate outcome is to look at the whole world as a global village. And thanks to technology, thanks to transportation, thanks to the innovations in movement of goods, this has been made possible. But when we talk about globalization, we are trying to see how far Indian enterprises and entrepreneurs can take advantage of what is available outside, and how far foreign enterprises and entrepreneurs outside take advantage of what is available in India. So it is high time that we look at our potential strength, the demographic dividend that this country enjoys, the rich resources that it has, the skilled manpower that it has. We need not always look at India as a land of perhaps 120 crore mouths to feed. 120 crore of mouths to feed, if you see it in that perspective, is a challenge. But we need to also think that we have 120 crores of brains to empower not just our men, but men in the globe at large. So there are lots and lots of opportunities across. Initially, when we started thinking of globalization, the challenges which we encountered was supremacy in finance by some nations and supremacy in technology by some other nations. But India and China all the time had supremacy in markets, which we even now have. Under such a circumstance, we have to look at what opportunities exist for us to move outside, which are the emerging business models, and what are the opportunities we can take off by looking at the services which we are the best at. Now, globalization, the features of globalization essentially talks about the movement of goods and services. It is on this line that we started off with the GATT, which is now around more than 70 years old. And subsequently, after 40 years of deliberation, we came up with the WTO. We saw regional trade blocs getting formed in the form of the European Union, even in Asia, the SAARC or the ASEAN and groups, where we said we look at what mutually is possible between a said group of nations. But essentially, the whole issue was free movement of goods and services, removing all tariffs, removing all quantitative restrictions, removing all licensing that prevents free movement of goods and services. To a very significant extent, this was made possible. And this is one of the main features of globalization. Again, we started looking in terms of global standards. If you need to be an exporter, you need to meet global standards. You need to meet standards in terms of ethics, in terms of use of human resources, in terms of use of natural resources, and so on. So global standards again was something which had to be significantly complied with. Something which is very interesting in globalization is the information symmetry that is available. That means any opportunity, any financial indicator, any financial input or implication that comes up in any part of the world, in any financial market or institution under a system, is made known to every other person in the world at the same time. So this is a feature which supports integration. This is a feature which supports learning from other systems, drawing from advantages which prevail maybe in terms of the demographic dividend that you have, maybe in terms of the dividend that you have, in terms of time, or the cost benefit that you have. So the information is available to all at the same time with the same degree of intensity, and that is an outcome that you have through technological integration, which has made the globe a small village where things can happen. Another great development in a globalized world is the electronic platforms that you use. So you have any kind of business models, including what we talk of in terms of the Uber taxi model, or in terms of the Amazon or the Flipkart model of e-trading. We all have models across which are based on electronic platforms. It has its own models of e-trade, it has its own model of e-transmission, and this has all been facilitated by a sound system of e-payments. So at the grassroots of this, a medium that we had to mediate in an electronic platform has been e-finance, which is a feature of a globalized world. Another important feature is a large market that you have. You have clients across the globe, and you produce not just looking at what opportunity exists in the immediate vicinity. You are not looking at a geographical space within which you have your customers. We are looking at a larger globe, and when you do that, the scale at which you produce is very significant, and when you produce at a larger scale, the cost per unit comes down. So this has brought down costs significantly for several products and made them widely available. The selection option which you have has significantly gone up, consequent to the process of globalization which has taken place. Another important feature, yet another important feature that we talk of, is the best use of resources that is possible through the movement of inputs. What inputs you need, you draw it from whatever part of the world it is best available. Here earlier we used to talk about theories of comparative advantage. Here the comparative advantage exactly works in terms of the inputs that you can draw. Maybe we have inputs in terms of some raw materials. You can get manpower from wherever it is. You can get capital from wherever it is. You can get managerial talent from wherever it is, and you can take advantage of an opportunity which might exist somewhere else. So the theory says, or the issue here is, a globalized world talks about inputs where you can draw across the globe and you can integrate them into a desired output at scales which you can imagine, taking into account the possible market that exists for you. And ultimately, when all this happens, we have a situation where we turn out to be a global village. Now this again creates a situation where at times the far becomes near and the near becomes far. This talks about the human resource backing that a globalized world has. Each day you find people traveling by bus or train by flight or whatever mode of transportation. They keep interacting with their friends, with their business partners, with their customers, who are all from a very distant location. You might be interacting on your over a breakfast with a person in US, with another partner in Pakistan, another partner maybe in Sri Lanka or wherever. So the far has become very near. And the challenge there is, when you use a social media or where you use a business platform, you interact with people at very distant location, continuously build relationship with them. But the challenge is, it should not in a way affect what is very close to us. So we often have a issue of lacking insight on understanding what is immediately available with us in the form of local resources. It can be local manpower, it can be our own family, it can be the immediate vicinity. So globalization, when it makes far near, what is good in the near needs to be taken into account. So here essentially the features of a globalized world is, we are getting fast integrated in terms of culture, in terms of social relationship, in terms of manpower, and this relationship has created for us markets, opportunities where funds can move and opportunities can be put into reality by infusing lifeblood finance into what is happening there. Now, where do we locate? A key issue when we talk about emerging business models is where do we locate? If an opportunity for medical transcription exists in among the medical fraternity in US, should I take advantage of the same by locating a medical transcription unit in US? Or can I do it from India? Although my clients are in US. Same with legal transcription. Same with your use of your transportation systems or use of your online trading platforms. So where do I locate? Is it where the opportunity is? If I see an opportunity in France, need I to go and see whether I can have a business enterprise there, or can I take advantage of an opportunity that exists there by operating in India? This is where we are talking about. Should I locate where the opportunity exists? Should I locate where the raw materials exist? Now, where there is physically movement of raw materials from the source of raw materials to the place of manufacture, and that involves a significant cost, then perhaps I need to push it near the raw material source. And in many cases where your raw material is in the form of a online kind of transferable service, an online kind of service that can be transmitted, then again location does not become important. So again, should I locate where the place the raw material is located, or should I locate at the place where the funds are available? I find that the European market is better or the American market is better. Cheap funds are available, lower cost of funds prevail there. Again, this is not necessary, because wherever the funds are, funds can get transferred to your location. So should you move to the place where funds are cheap, or where will the funds which are cheap come to you, is yet another place where we think, or yet another model where we think of the emerging business models. Or again, should we go to a place where cheap manpower is available? Or is it possible to get cheap manpower to your location? Now it is based on such factors that you decide how to have a business model. Again, should you move to a place where the requisite talent is available, or can you get the requisite talent to the place where you operate? And similar to that is what we talk about in terms of managerial skill. So where do we locate? Need not always be at a point where managerial skill, talent, manpower, your resources, your raw materials, your opportunity, every of these things converge. It can be at points where opportunity is somewhere else, funds will come from somewhere else, clients are somewhere else, funds, your manpower can come from somewhere else, you can hire talent from somewhere else. And these are the existing models that prevail here. It is how you link up all these things, how you bring them into a sequential value chain. How do I scan the environment and understand precisely the point, precisely the focus from which I can bring these things into an integrated form. That is an emerging business model. And you look at all the emerging business models, I need not significantly invest in all these things at one place and one point. I can take advantage of what is available and see that a convergence takes place into a model of that kind, which is what we've subsequently discussed in the units to come as far as financial market is concerned and the emerging business model. So I do the best location in terms of the opportunity, taking advantage of the opportunity, taking advantage of the funds available, taking advantage of the manpower available, and I am seeing that I have a proposition which can be translated into action. Now, if you have a financial market that supports it, your business model will definitely move in terms of its scalable heights. Now, we have to search for this opportunity. We have to search for this opportunity and understand this very simple fact that inputs are mobile. All inputs need not always be present in a place, and I need not do everything from scratch to the final stage of delivery. Say for instance, conventionally when I think of a business, what comes to our mind is we need to put together all resources, and whether all resources are available in the same place where I intend to operate, and I see my market also there. That is not required in a model that we are talking about, and this is where we look at an emerging opportunity for us where we can do all these things to the best of our ability. Funds will come from where they are cheap. If you have your standards in place, if you have organized yourself in place, if you have your regulatory mechanisms in place, funds will obviously come from the place where they are cheap. You can also get the best manpower, provided you are willing to pay for them. You can get the best talent in terms of wherever they are available. You will also get the talent, and you will get the what you call all the other resources that you want, and you put them in a location where they can be best use of. So it is in fact looking at an opportunity where they exist, not just looking at an opportunity where you exist. You are in search of an opportunity and you take advantage of that opportunity rather than sitting back and looking whether an opportunity comes to you. And that happens in an environment where the supportive markets exist, where the supportive financing systems do exist. Now, such opportunities exist in different forms. And the different forms in which they exist, perhaps some of them could be just acting as service providers. You look at many of the industries today, enterprises today, they don't do everything that happens within them. You could have a large number of branded textile units. You very closely look at the market, you will find that what they do is they get their stitching in one place, they get their cutting and assembling in another place. So there are a large number of MSME units who draw opportunity by just cutting and assembling of shirt pieces or pant pieces, and then you get a branded tag to it and it sells off. So you are service providers. Your service providers outsource agents maybe for dealing with some of their online services, or you could be doing supply of some ancillary parts. So you are a service provider and you have an opportunity in that form, or you are a manufacturer of a part and there are several other manufacturers of different parts of a particular product which gets assembled yet as another opportunity. So there are parts which are assembled, ancillary units which do that, and an opportunity for acting as an assembler or an assembly unit. You can act as an agent, doing some of the services which are required to bring them together. Most of the e-commerce platforms, which is again coming up as subsequent units for you, what they essentially do is they are only intermediaries. They take in bulk from those who produce, they reduce the supply chain, and that brings down the cost, and they ensure a market acting as an intermediary. So you have your business to business or business to customer, all those models which operate over there. So you can act as an agent, you can act as a franchisee, you can act as an assembler, you can act as a promoter. So all these are the emerging models where you are an element in a supply chain, but you are not a totality in starting a product or a service from scratch to end. And there lies an emerging opportunity for you. You could be an enabler. You would be enabling a service, whether it is again technology based, or whether it is value chain based, or whether it is value addition based. You could be enabler of a service, and that enabling service could be given to a number of similar enterprises which are aligned with the same function. So an enabler's opportunity still exists over there. You could act as partners. You could act as total solution providers. You could be total solution providers for something. You could again act as technology builders for that, technology support builders for that. You could act as outsourced service providers. All these are opportunities where emerging value systems, emerging skills can be used to make it a live enterprise for the unit. So what then is an opportunity? What then is an opportunity which comes in the form of an emerging business model? An opportunity is something which comes through scanning the environment, the business environment, knowing what all happens around the world, keeping your ears and minds open to all that is sought after by men across the world for meeting their daily needs. So it is something which emerges from the environment by understanding the environment and taking advantage of what exists there. You identify a service or a product which is in need, a product which is in need or a service in need. It could be a felt need by somebody in some part of the world. It could be a felt need by a community. It could be a felt need by an industry. It could be a felt need by government. It could be a felt need by regulators. But once it is identified as a need, then you need to look at how this can be met. And what are we doing? We are either making a product or a service. You are making that product or that service which meets the need, or we are a party to the chain. There could be a chain of enterprises, a chain of entities who are engaged in meeting that need. And you can also be a part to that. As we were talking about, when a textile industry is looking at creating branded textile material, it's not always necessary that you should be in the brand name. You can be a service provider, you can be a person who acts as an entity in the chain. So the key lies in identifying a need, creating a product or service to meet that need. Either you create it or you understand the potential that it has to be a party to that chain. And that can happen even for a micro level, a small micro unit. There, what happens is you have to know the environment and a value chain that goes to deliver a product in that environment. That exactly or precisely is what we call a business model. Now, how did this happen? Or how did such emerging business models come up? Because earlier, as I was saying, we were looking at enterprises. If you need to have an enterprises producing a product or a service, we immediately start thinking of getting all your men from the immediate vicinity. We think of materials, we think of machinery, we think of land, we think of all resources to be assembled, a huge investment that need to be deployed. It is essentially because of that fact that you have your project finance models centered around financing all the resources, because you are not being a party in the entire value chain, but you are creating a value on your own. Now this system says, I need not do everything on my own. I can perhaps, if I am having my own manufacturing unit, I might assign transportation to somebody, I might assign packing to somebody, I might assign delivery to somebody, I might assign some of the activities to some of my agents and franchisees. So those will be separate models which are financed separately. And I will be concentrating on my USP, or I will be concentrating on my core competency, and my financial requirements are of that nature. And my financial markets and institutions are supporting those kind of financial requirements that come up there. Now, how did this happen? This exactly happened when the limitations of time and space were broken by technology. What do you mean by this? Somebody who wants something or somebody who is delivering something, both at the point of need and the point of delivery, there is no limitation in time and space. This happens in almost all kinds of services. We talk, suppose I'm talking about banking, we talk about anytime banking, anywhere banking. I'm not looking at customers who will come into a particular branch, which is a space, and who will come within a banking time which is time. They will require and meet their banking needs at any point of time and from any place. Education can happen from any point of time and from any place. Your purchase can happen from any point of time. There is no place where you go and buy or no time where you go and purchase. It can happen from anywhere. It can happen at any time. So this is where you're saying the barriers of time and time and space are broken. That breaking down of time and space barrier creates opportunities in terms of seeking the best services, seeking the best products, seeking the best platforms, and it also creates challenges in terms of delivering as per the demands of the time. That has happened when the limitations of time and space have broken. Most specifically, the technology support has come from IT-enabled services. So you have a feel of what the world has to offer, not one nation or one enterprise has to offer. You have a feel of what is available in any other part of the world, and you always have an expectation that you get what is best available in the world at large. And here the link is there through an IT platform, and then the globe is your market. So we have to think of perhaps models in terms of different scalable heights. There are emerging business models which are at the micro level. They do small activities, support small element, and then they scale up. There are business models where you merge and consolidate through mergers and acquisitions, and you take advantage of a larger market. There are business models where you have geographical associations forming together and you deliver in a given a market space which you regard as the best for you. Now, for all these markets, the key delivery aspect will be how effectively you are going to get one input resource which acts as a key for all other resources, and that is finance. Because it is with this finance that I take my technology, that I take my inputs and I drive on that line so as to reach the desired delivery point with the desired value addition that can be created over there. Now, what could be these models? As I have said, you start from startups to MNCs. That's why we give a lot of importance, we give attach a lot of significance to your startup models, your stand-up models. We talk about innovation. We invest significantly on idea creation, finding out innovative ways, making people think differently, creative applications where you can find opportunities exist outside. So what can be done by a startup? Startup initially is looking at a business idea with scalability into it, and what can be done by an MNC are not same. They are drastically different. But that the element at which, the level at which they operate talks about how much they can take advantage of a good financial market that is going to support them with the best utilization of funds. And the key to all this is how effectively you use money. If you are going to put across a proposal, you are saying, this is what I did with my the money, the finance that you gave me. This is how I justify my use, and I ask for more based exactly on that. Now here, the resource base is what you have. All that you need to have is a resource base, and that resource base, you need not have everything that you want, but you must know where they are available and how to take advantage of that, and that is what is important, knowing where they are and using the support services for that. That means when I am investing in an enterprise, I need not dream of investing in every small element of it, every small service of it. I think of what is best for me and leave the rest to the supporting agencies. which good support I will get. Suppose I am in the airlines industry, or suppose I am in the aircraft manufacturing industry, I can have an aircraft manufacturing unit with an aircraft servicing unit to be a supportive service. So that kind of a linkage comes. I can have automobile manufacturing with automobile servicing as a support service. I can have a television manufacturing unit where many of its parts are not manufactured by me, where the delivery is done by something. Such models are models which are emerging, over which we need to look into. Now, such that you do not have to significantly look at investing in all your long-term assets independently. You will have even supportive investors to assist you. You will have a good idea with crowd financing coming for it. And this is where financial markets get linked up with emerging business models. Finance flows to such models, and that is the key to success in every emerging business environment that comes up. Finance flows to emerging business models considering or aligning with its feasibility, the extent to which we believe that the idea is feasible, the idea is workable. Finance flows to points of sustainability, and sustainability comes, that is where we need to keep underlie this particular fact, that sustainability comes when what you do has a taker, and that taker delivers something to a subsequent taker, and the cycle continues. We need to sustain all that is required for the economy. We need to sustain all that is good in the value chain for the country, and that is where the whole issue of sustainability comes. We also look at finance which comes in areas which are stable. We look at the point of stability, and we look at a point where all these things get well knit into, are wonderfully blended into a value chain. So essentially, the emerging business models are taking advantage of not just the resources that they have. They are taking advantage by becoming a party to the value addition that happens in the value chain. Those are the emerging business models which exist today. Now, just to wrap up the whole unit that we have covered, what we tried to look at the beginning was the objective of financial management, which talked about wealth maximization. We tried to look at the most recent, robust, vibrant approach of finance, which is based on the key aspect of utilization of resources. We again looked at what exactly is the financial system, giving utmost importance or attaching the most significant part of it to the word system. It is a financial system, and that financial system is a blending or complex connection between institutions, services, instruments and markets, such that they continuously keep the economy to the best of its productive capabilities. Then subsequently, we went into the components of the financial market. We saw that it has a money market and a capital market, but the distinction, the segment in it is not as thick as it was. We see that the market is getting integrated. We see that the segments cross market and draw from one another. We saw how in your money market you have financial institutions which are specialized and non-specialized, and in your market, in your capital market, which supply long-term funds, you have a primary market and a secondary market. Each of this exists for debt, equity and your derivatives. The primary market is a market for new issues. The secondary market is where it is traded subsequent to its exit from its new issue stage. Again, something that we saw was at the micro level, at the enterprise level, organizations have long-term financial requirements and short-term financial requirements based on what is their capital structure need, requirement and consistency, they have to tap, they have to knock at the appropriate financial source. They have to understand cost of funds, risk involved, risk return management. They have to see that this financial market of theirs is based on the 4 pillars of investment management. And subsequently, we saw how working capital requirements are sourced from financial institutions which operate in the money market. We also went out to look at the changing paradigm in banking, very quickly referring to the disintermediation, the preponement of consumption and credit, and the like activities that take place. After going through this constant changes, the paradigm shift that has taken place in the financial market, we are consistently trying to look at emerging business models, considering the fact that globalization has created a global village which has unfolded before us a host of opportunities. The opportunities are there for every enterprise, which starts from a very micro level enterprise or a startup to a multinational corporation. It emerges from how you look at the business environment, try to identify a need that exists in some part of the globe, deliver something to meet the need, either in the form of a product or a service, or being an entity in the value chain. For this, we have a whole sort of electronic platform in the waiting, which integrates and reduces the limitations of time and space. It is this emerging business model that has the support of a good financial market, for which again we have to look into the concept of inclusive growth, the concept of sustainability, the concept of scalability and stability. Ultimately, what counts is how much good is this market for the economy, how much it is supporting production, employment, income generation, and to what extent the financial market acts as an intermediary between the productive resources that you have on one side and the deployment of the resources for action on the other side. Thanks for this opportunity, and I hope the units to follow will give you more insights into the e-commerce models, into the use of the financial resources that we have in its different forms, into the ethics that we have in business models that are following. And the 5th unit in this particular course puts a lot of emphasis on case studies. It talks about live cases in the financial market which have supported emerging business models where technology has supported in making the entire business world one of a global village. Thank you so much.